Howdy, howdy, everybody. Welcome back to Cause Before Symptom. It is just now August 1st of 2026. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. James asked me to come back as a guest host tonight while he was out of town, probably until Monday. Maybe Tuesday he'll be back, but probably Monday is what he said. So I'll be filling in a couple nights with you tonight and through the weekend. And we're going to talk primarily, I think we're going to do a short I guess mini series you could call it, on measurement and telemetry and how precision plays into that. And so that's why I think on YouTube I titled this episode Precision and Cybernetics, because tonight what we're going to do is we're actually going to go back in time a little bit. We're going to go back and we're going to take a look at some old videos from like the 70s, maybe the 60s on first precision measurement, when they were first able to reach these levels of precision, when they first began inventing finer tools of measurement in the 50s and 60s and stuff like that. And this has been going on through pretty much the early 1900s, but it really picked up around that time, and that's what, of course, brought the semiconductor, the integrated circuit. So we're going to take a look at some of those, and then I'm going to go through some probably some recap and some terminology and stuff after that, but I'm going to play those for you, and I think it'll be a pretty good time. So hope everybody's doing well tonight, and we will have a good time. And I wanted to say, before I forget, the one thing I want everybody to keep in mind when we think about measurement precision, on Wall Street, the bull statue on Wall Street, the bull with the balls, and has a ring in its nose. Well, the idea of that is that if you can measure something, you can game it, you can play it. That's the idea of the ring in the bull's nose. And so if you can put the ring into the bull's nose, you can lead it around. That, of course, is the idea. So let's go ahead and make sure everything's up and running, just because I know technical difficulties and all. Just double check everything, guys, and we'll get it running. Yeah, looks like I'm still up and running. Okay, let's go ahead and get her started. First, we're going to watch a 10-minute segment on precision measurement.
Through such precision instruments as these, our standards of accuracy are being changed. Science has opened the gateway to new conquests in accuracy of measurement. The yardstick has expanded until hundredths of an inch.
I actually see Boots's message. He said, "Update on my wife, Urban. She's speaking much better and moving her left side more. Thank you for your prayers." And to everybody else, I appreciated hearing that, Boots. Thank you for sharing that, and I'm really glad to hear that. I'm trying to pause this real quick. I'm going to restart it. So we're going to watch some segments on precision measurement first. It's about 10 minutes from, I believe, the 60s, 50s or 60s. And then we're going to watch a short segment, about 20 minutes, on cybernetics. All of this has to do with measurements, what we're going to be talking about later, telemetry, measurements that are being pulled through, nanotechnology nowadays. But we're going to lay the foundation first. So thank you for sharing that, Boots. I'm glad to have you with us tonight.
Through such precision instruments as these, our standards of accuracy are being changed. Science has opened the gateway to new conquests in accuracy of measurement. The yardstick has expanded until hundredths of an inch. Thousandths of an inch, even millionths, have become measurable quantities. And the power of man's senses has been extended to reach into a new world that he cannot see or hear or feel without the aid of science. A world in which the most familiar objects become strange and unrecognizable, because our standards of comparison have grown infinitely small. Chemists and engineers, the scientists of industry, are becoming more and more familiar with the fantastic land beyond the microscope. Through lenses which magnify hundreds and thousands of times, metal experts count and even measure the crystal structures which make up iron and steel. A measuring stick smaller than a pinhead is used, with tiny lines a thousandth of an inch apart. Under the searching lens of the microscope, small blocks of metal in the laboratory tell the secrets of the millions of tons of iron and steel that go into the huge manufacturing plants. And in these plants, microscopic precision controls the form and size and surface of every part.
The other night I saw a documentary that was showing how they built a train, like a steam locomotive. And this was the 1930s, so they were like casting it. They were making these big sand casts and pouring the steel into it. It was really fascinating. I shared it on YouTube.
And complete interchangeability. Gauges to test the hardness and toughness of metals are miracles of modern precision. A device known as a scleroscope is used to measure the degree of resistance of metal parts such as the camshaft. A small weight in the tube is dropped on the surface being tested. The amount of bounce measures the hardness of the surface. Hard metals are also tested in a large master gauge. The metal is placed on a support and a diamond point is forced into the surface. The distance the point penetrates is measured accurately on a dial to determine the exact degree of hardness. A similar type of master gauge is used for checking the toughness of metals. In this method...
So just again, because I really do want people to step away from this video, and I want everybody to remember one thing, to be this. Whatever you can measure, if you can measure something, if you can get something into a state where measurement is how, you're measuring it, you're pulling statistics on it, what you can do is you can game that to your advantage. And that's the basis of pretty much Wall Street. And that's why the bull on Wall Street has a ring. And the ring is kind of an old idea. And it's funny, but there's a controversial thing going around for people, and I guess Gen Z or whatever, they call it the nose ring theory. And it's like this controversial thing that a lot of guys say that in their experiences, women who have nose rings are sometimes crazy. And so I see this pop up everywhere in various reels and stuff like that. And it's just a big debate that's kind of grown. And the idea goes all the way back to the bull. If you can put the ring into the bull's nose, or any animal for that matter, if you can measure something, you can game it. And so remember that, and that's why we're talking about measurement. How's it going, Philip? Nice to have you with us tonight.
A steel ball under great pressure is forced into the surface of the metal. The dent or hollow formed in the test specimen is measured under the microscope. Master instruments check the accuracy of measurements within 0.5 of an inch. Master gauges check the accuracy of tools and parts used in the factories and on the assembly lines. This precision control of manufacturing operations, for example, gives an exact fit between piston and piston pin. The size of the parts is so accurately controlled that if the piston is chilled for a moment on ice, it will contract. And the pin, when warmed, will expand enough so that the two will no longer fit. Under all ordinary conditions, the two parts will fit perfectly. But if we reverse the operation and warm the piston, it will expand again, and the pin, chilled on ice, will contract, and now fits too loosely in the hole. Limits of accuracy in inspection of piston pins are so small that they are almost beyond comparison. Finished pins fit smoothly into the pistons with no difference in size over 1/10 of a thousandth of an inch.
It should probably be
Surfaces
said better that this was the age that they began mass producing these precision-made electronics. That's probably a better way to put it.
of moving parts are checked within extremes of measurements that are invisible to the human eye. Sensitive electric meters and delicate feeler points check piston diameters in terms of a single inch divided into 10,000 parts. Cylinders are checked for equal perfection in diameter, roundness, and smoothness. Precision cutting machines shape and round the cylinders. Precision polishing machines polish and grind the walls to smoothness. And precision gauges guide the inspection of the finished work. The pistons move up and down in the cylinders of the automobile engine with just enough room to spare for a film of oil thinner than the walls of a soap bubble. In the careful assembly and fitting together of the parts, many different types of gauges are needed. In the factory, a gauge known as an amplifying indicator is used as a precision check on the fit of the main bearings. A delicate feeler arm which travels over the surface of the bearing is connected so that its slightest movement shows on a dial marked in 10,000ths of an inch. The tools called go and no-go gauges automatically guard the perfection of every part. The utmost precision is carried directly into every step of manufacture. The openings between the two...
That's important, but basically what he's saying is that this is back to what I said, the reason that they were able to do this in an assembly line or similar type of mass production line is because of what did he call it? A no or no-go gauge, I think is what he called it, a go or no-go gauge. Basically, they could test, is the precision correct or is it not? It's a little gauge and it either goes through the gauge or it doesn't. And so that's a go or no-go gauge. And so basically, that go or no-go is a binary signal. And when you investigate all these other information technology, cybernetics, stuff like that, that's when you get into binary signals. But it functions the same way.
Of this gauge have been set according to exact measurements. A valve stem that will not go through the top opening is rejected because it is too large. A valve stem that will go through both openings is also rejected because it is too small. A perfect valve stem will go through the top opening and will not go through the bottom opening, yet the difference is less than the thickness of a hair. Inspection of automobile parts in the factory requires...
Less than the thickness of a hair. Remember, we watched a portion of the semiconductor manufacturing is indistinguishable from magic. And he said that a human hair in 2012 or something like that, whenever that was done, a human hair, they could put 60 gigabytes on a human hair. So there's a comparison.
There's the use of many different sizes and shapes of gauges. Special gauges are used to measure the surfaces of transmission gears. Slight imperfections are magnified so that only perfect gears may find their way into the finished product. The dials detect the smallest variation in the sensitive feeler point as the gears are inspected. Another tool, electrical pickup and amplification, has been perfected and put into use to detect flaws. Does this sound like the rhythmical beat of a jungle drum? Actually, it is the sound of a human heart which science can amplify 1,000,000 times, just as sound can be amplified by measuring instruments in factories to make sure that gears are smooth. Throughout the great manufacturing plants, tools, instruments, gauges work with almost uncanny intelligence, sorting and selecting, checking, passing or rejecting, ever on guard for the slightest imperfection. Accuracy, precision, exactness have been brought to new significance in the microscopic world of scientific measurements, utilizing everything that modern science and research can provide in the way of measurements that are precisely so.
So basically, precision is what led to a lot of the advances. It's what paved the way for all of the advances into microcomputing, especially to nowadays where we're 60 gigabytes in 2012, but it's probably to a terabyte now. I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be over a terabyte that can be put on a human hair, maybe even way more than that now. But yeah. So the next one we're going to watch is on cybernetics, early days of cybernetics. I wish I had found it at an earlier point in time when I did the other videos on cybernetics, but I found this recently and I thought it was a really good video. That was revolutionary computer sound effects at the time, is what I'm assuming.
The most wonderful automata of the world is the human brain. It weighs about 1.5 kilograms and consists of many milliards of nerve cells and nerve fibers, many hundred kilometers long. No such complicated automatic device has ever been made by modern techniques. Dead elements cannot produce the electrical and chemical contacts that are within the body. No instrument can replace the experience and function of the human brain.
I'm going to be honest, I feel like I know they say correlation isn't causation, but you guys tell me what you think. The moment that people stop having to drive manual transmission vehicles, people got stupid. Just saying.
No such machine can yet imitate the 1,000 different kinds of reflexes of sportsmen and the very fast movements made without previous thought. Victory within 1 second. The movements are so fast that they cannot be followed. Once again, slower. The attack starts. It ends in a trick. The sword is thrust upwards. From that, the opponent thinks there will be a blow on the head. His waist
They're
becomes
trying to
defenseless.
measure, you know, think of it as like a slice of time. That's what calculus is all about, is like, what if we make the slices of time smaller? So again, I'll give you a better analogy. It's like, okay, you want to calculate your speed, average speed. You need to have a starting point. You need to have an end point. And then you would find the difference and divide the two. And that's how you find your average speed over that distance. So calculus, generally they say that Isaac Newton played a big role in inventing calculus. And there was another guy too, Leibniz, I think. But the idea is, what if we just make that like an infinitely small slice of time? It can't be zero. Like, you can't measure it over no time. You have to measure it over an infinitely small slice of time. And we would understand that that slice of time is now. So we say it's right now, and it's always been right now. And so that's like an infinite slice of time, potentially 0 point, maybe the 0 point energy, and that have a connection. That seems to be what a lot of people indicate.
No, there is no mechanical automatic device so fast and so versatile. How much is 325 times 683?
There's not a
in
person
such
in the
short
world that
time,
could do
the
that.
human brain is unable to do it. But this way, the result is obtained in a second. If this is not fast enough, there is the electronic computer, which can add many thousands of figures in a second, or can evolve complicated mathematical formulas.
3 pedals and a wiggle stick.
These seemingly
That's great.
lifeless elements can also
Let's
play
put that
chess.
up.
They can translate foreign languages or give a medical diagnosis.
Let's see.
Can this same machine, in which only electric impulses move, be so versatile? Well, the different parts of the body, yes. The different organs of the body work similarly. Light and sound and different tastes and smells reach the brain through the various organs of sense. These impulses, which are the signs of the outer world, do not reach the brain in their original form. The nerve system is also constructed of uniform, seemingly motionless particles. Each nerve cell is joined to the next by complicated many-sided threads. If one cell is affected by an impulse, through a chemical process, an electric charge of a duration of a thousandth of a second develops, and then at once it loses its charge. This is repeated whilst the impulse lasts. The multitude
There
of
it is.
cells can affect each
I
other
don't
by
know
their
why it took me
actual
so long.
connections. The impulse
Boots
passes
said
on
that
with
his
small
youngest
delays to the
daughter can
neighboring
drive
cells,
vehicles
and
with
this,
3
a
pedals
series
and
of
a wiggle
electric impulses
stick.
develops. In the nerve system of living beings, there are similar moving impulses. If a thin wire is placed under the nerve thread leading from the feeling particle of the peritoneum, the impulses can be illustrated. As the impulses are very weak, it is necessary to amplify them.
And see, look, look how long ago that was. That's basically what they're doing with all of these microelectrical mechanical systems. Smart dust, nano size now.
The point of a needle has changed into such an impulse in the human nerve system. And what about technique? Well, the light signals are transformed into impulses with the aid of a photocell. While the sound signals are transformed through a microphone. With sound recording devices, every kind of stimuli can be perceived. This machine uses instruments which imitate the human system. Its eyes are photocells, and its ears are the microphone. First, it is able to move with the effect of light, and therefore it always automatically turns towards the light. Now it does not move, although it hears the sound. If the light and sound signals reach the insect simultaneously, the currents of the photocell and the microphone are connected in such a way that the machine shows logical behavior towards the outside. It is similar to a real conditional reflex. But the machine can be confused by unexpected circumstances. Two lamps, this is something new and unknown. Among the relatively few elementary particles, there is no possibility for the formation of so many connections to enable the realization of several logical decisions. Since each new condition influences the other, the more complicated tasks require several hundreds, or indeed several thousands of connections. If it was possible to look inside the human brain, it would be seen to contain many millions of uniform elements of the cortex, which are the nerve cells. Even when these appear to be completely inactive, they are still able to produce electric impulses. It is possible to even make a record of them. Whilst the centers of the cortex are not affected by any stimuli from the senses, the vibrations are unchanged. Something occurs in the brain with the effect of stimuli, which lasts as long as the stimuli last. The eye reports. The ear reports. Although the impulses are seemingly uniform, they affect different centers of the brain each time. This is how the human brain differentiates and knows the stimuli. Cybernetics tries to explore this process by constructing a model of the brain. The complicated multiple connections of the nerve cells are replaced by a number of...
So here, when he says, we create a model of the brain, this is the beginning of all of the surrogate model, a digital twin stuff, and we're probably going to, like when we finish this, we're going to cap off with a little bit of review on what that is, but that's where all this began. Where it's, you know, you can study human behavior, you can study the brain, but what they're doing is they're basing a lot of this modern planning. It's starting to literally getting to the point now where it's going to affect policy, because you have people like Palantir writing their basically rebranded techno-fascist model. That's pretty much what it is. It is in the rawest sense. It is fascism, what they posted as their like little manifesto, because they have something called a corporate monarch CEO. That's pretty much the perfect epitome of what fascism is. It's when you have the private sector basically become and merge and buy out. The private sector comes to replace the government. You know, the government just says, hey, we need to get a government over here ASAP. And it's like, okay, we'll do the whole thing for you. You contract out the government to us. That's what it really manifests as. And this actually happened once before. Back in 1912 or 1913, there was something called the Pujo Committee. The Pujo Committee found that a group of wealthy banking elite held a monopoly over the American economy. And so we need to have the Federal Reserve Act to go in and fix that. That was in 1913, I think. Or maybe 1912, because then you had the Federal Reserve come in 1913.
Electronic tubes and wires. The various elements which stand apart become centers, and each has a different task. For example, there is a mechanical mouse which looks for cheese. How would a real mouse behave? Now we see how the machine behaves. At each corner, the artificial mouse tries to turn left, to go forward. No success. This is already an experience worth remembering. Each time it touches the wall, a switch in the chest is turned to the forbidden position. Just watch it. Impending stimuli.
Absolutely, Boots.
Free-moving stimuli.
Just like the Person of Interest series. I think if anybody is able to watch it, you know, if you can get it on whatever streaming platform you may happen to have and you have the ability to, I suggest watching at least a couple episodes, because it'll give you a really good idea as to pretty much what really happened. I mean, it's much bigger and advanced, and the capabilities are much more draconian and Orwellian. But Person of Interest was a really good way to understand what this is for the common everyday person with little experience to networks and stuff like that.
The uncomplicated route is divided into small parts, into the stages of stimulus and impending stimuli. The human brain also gains experience through experiment.
And it's also just popped into my mind, one thing to think about is that when the internet became a part of pop culture, so for instance, once television and movies started to bring into the plot line that there is a thing called the internet, once that became a part of the movie universe, that connected our world and the fictional world. Because when people, it's like a subconscious thing, if that makes sense. When people are watching a movie and they're talking about the internet, you think, oh, well, that's the same internet that we're all on, right? Because it's like, it could be, because it's like the internet's the internet and anybody could be on the internet. So it kind of gives it a way into this world.
On the second occasion, it is the memory of the brain which guides the artificial mouse. After the switches have been turned to the correct and shortest route, it remembers it. The control board shows that whatever way the labyrinth is changed, the mouse recognizes and knows about it after only passing through it. Of course, it is possible to play on more than 25 squares, and each move can be dependent on several conditions. In fact, it is a chess game. On any of the 64 squares, 12 types of different players can be placed. The machines seen so far are too slow to count the many millions of variations arrived at in this way. The game of chess is made with electronic computers. Chess masters and mathematicians have summed up the general laws of chess in mathematical formulae. The strategic evaluation of the various moves and the changes in position must be expressed numerically. Since the chess machine only knows the language of impulses, the mathematical formulae have to be transformed. These are the rules of the chess game in the form of impulses. The memory unit of the machine is now learning.
Hopefully it's still fresh in everybody's mind when we covered last week or the week before all of the electromagnetism, dielectromagnetism stuff. Remember, we talked a lot about magnetism because Ken Wheeler says that you have dielectricity and magnetism. Those are your two things that interact and create electricity and create everything else. Dielectricity and magnetism, which one kind of brings in towards the center, one goes out from the center, centripetal and centrifugal. So all of these, tapes, VHS tape even, very recently we kind of outdated all that, but they still keep a lot of archives and formal records on tape. And I know that that's a big problem. They're trying to cut all of the books. Now we're finding out, just cut all of the books and destroy them and put them into AI. It's probably what they're going to do. But it's interesting, all of this tape works on magnetic strip and magnetic material. There's all kinds of special material that's on the tape that allow it to store this data.
The first move is made by Mr. Laszlo Szabó, the international grandmaster of chess. He informs the machine of his moves by pressing a button. Although the machine expresses this on the board, nevertheless, it turns the moves into numbers. Now it is the turn of the machine. After a few seconds counting, the machine makes a move. After each move made by Laszlo Szabó, the grandmaster, the machine makes many hundreds of thousands of calculations, and among the possibilities,
they have a grandmaster too?
Of the highest value.
Oh boy.
At present, the machine does not play better than man. But, for example, if man gives the machine some advantage, then the machine will recognize it. Mate. The machine is not only polite, but versatile. Since different letters and words can be turned into impulses, the machine also understands written texts. The machine is fed with a foreign language dictionary with grammar. The electronic machine will make the translations itself. A few lines are taken from a Russian language text. Instead of the text, there are impulses. In the activity of cybernetic machines and the human nerve system, there are similarities on which experiments on the organic connection of the living and lifeless organic matter can be carried out. After several months of preparation work, such experiments can be started. The electric impulses coming from the brain first go to the electronic computer. The computer, on the basis of a previously decided program, differentiates the nerve impulses, and from them it establishes the orders of the brain. Human thought guides the machine after a long and complicated process.
Yes, Boots, thank you. I appreciate that. Sorry, I was trying to get some stuff ready for after this, but yes, please hit the like button if you appreciated tonight's show, or if you're on James's channel, please hit the like button. I appreciate it. That always is something I like for you guys to do, especially if you're watching over there while I'm covering for him. He will be back Monday, for those of you who are on his channel watching.
In this way, cybernetics has opened a new age in technical history.
Okay, so now, that's what I was getting prepared for us. What I wanted to do is I just wanted to go over some terminology and stuff that we're going to use more over the next couple of days that I'm with you. We're going to look into more on this idea of telemetry, remote brain telemetry. We're going to talk about what kind of measurements they're doing with this in what they call the quote unquote health care monitoring, wireless healthcare monitoring, wearable medical technology. We're going to talk about all that over the next couple of days. After we're going to go ahead and talk about some of these terms real quick. So let me bring those up. Boom, here we go. So first, what is telemetry? Let me zoom in a bit so that I can read. Telemetry. This is from Anab Whitehouse. He wrote a rendition. I guess he didn't write the original, but there was a book back in the early 1900s called The Devil's Dictionary as well. But this one by Anab Whitehouse, he has it available on his website for free. You can download it. But he put together a dictionary of all these terms. And so partly, when I began doing these flashcard style images, I did some of the terms from that dictionary. That's how I got started doing it. So this is included in that dictionary. Telemetry. This encompasses a set of automated processes of communication in which data is collected, measured, assessed, and transmitted to a command and control center, which in turn sets in motion a series of responses concerning that data. Initially, telemetry was handled through networks of wired connections, but technological advances have enabled wireless systems to process such data as well as subsequent responses. Furthermore, AI-equipped nanotechnology, together with advances in metamaterials, biosensors, and routing devices and protocols, have made telemetry a largely invisible dynamic, which has the capacity to imprison people within that dynamic. Nanoparticles, including many metals, artificial and otherwise, such as in chemtrails, vaccines, pharmaceuticals, food, and water, together with energy and various molecules that are being siphoned off of the bodies of people being processed, are providing the primary materials for the various forms of AI nanotechnology to, without the consent of the host, set up shop and run all manner of automated telemetry measurement programs. And either they will harvest the data using energy harvesting. We might talk about that too over the next couple of nights. Energy harvesting, or they'll just use your device to power it. That's why your battery gets drained so fast. Next, we have digital twin. This is a digitized model that is built from acquiring data involving certain physical, emotional, and cognitive feature values associated with the human being, and then acting on those values in best voodoo fashion. The operators of the digital twin alters, injures, exploits, shapes, sickens, controls, or kills the existential original from which the digital twin was derived. Digital twins are derivatives in the sense that they give expression to ways of generating data sets, which for the purposes of financial gain or political control involve organizing and manipulating information concerning an underlying set of values or assets, such as human beings. Surrogate models. It's a ruthless, mathematically engineered imposter designed to mimic physics and biology without executing the actual computational work. The counterfeit reality discards the complex sovereign reality of the human subject, replacing them with a cheap predictive proxy. Like I said, the model is what they're making the decisions off of now. Okay, we're going to do a simulation for these constraints, and we're going to model what happens if let's say a neighborhood having this many people and this many houses and this much population density. We're going to do simulation, and then that's what we're actually going to build the neighborhood off of. And so what happens in reality is not necessarily relevant to the surrogate model or the digital twin. And in the human sense, it's a digital twin model. Otherwise, it's called a surrogate model. Closed loop control or self-optimization. It's the eradication of human intervention, allowing the digital system to observe, judge, and execute corrective punishment or optimization. This is called learning autonomously. It's the automated executioner in the sense of a program, an executioner. The AI, this could be called a daemon as well. It's one form of daemon. The AI monitors the biological or mechanical asset. It identifies deviation from the prescribed norm and instantly applies adjustments without needing a human warden to pull the trigger. Continuous adaptation becomes an infinite loop of inescapable algorithmic correction. This is has to do with something called a gradient descent. Well, a gradient, but it's called gradial descent. Gradial descent, let me, probably better if I give you a visual. One moment, let me do that. I've showed it to you before, but I will show it to you once again. Sorry, 1 second. Yeah, so gradient descent is basically like trying to reach the bottom of a mountain. You're trying to take the best path to get to the bottom as fast as possible. The bottom in this case would be the minimal amount of error. You're going to be the least wrong possible, and you're going to do it in the most optimized way. Yeah, here's a good graphic. So yes, again, this would be error. It's called optimization in calculus. It's a higher level form of it, but this is pretty much the idea behind machine learning. It's a simple way to sum it up. There's a lot more to it, but basically it tries to find a minimal amount of error. And that's it guesses, and it does a lot of calculations to find out how to get to the bottom of the mountain as fast as possible. Okay, 1 second, let me put this away. Okay, next up we have inverse design generation. So there's two parts to it, but first, inverse design generation is the outsourcing of present grid engineering to artificial intelligence, which hallucinates alien, non-intuitive geometric patterns for meta-atoms or any type of pretty much device that you slap the term meta onto. Because you got meta optics, you have meta photonics, you have meta atoms, you have all kinds of meta surfaces. But yes, basically a human is not able to design things that small because obviously we can't see down to that size. So how do they design it? How do they keep getting all of the space? Or rather, how can they put so much storage in such a small amount of space? Well, it's because they use AI now and inverse design generation to do it. So it's a lot of it has to do with incomprehensible physics. The control grid is constructed using mathematical geometries that the human brain cannot intuitively grasp, solidifying a power structure governed by machine logic rather than the human understanding. So it's important to note that most of what's being done today uses forward and inverse design together. So in meta optics, which is when I made these cards for the meta optics video I did, in meta optics, engineered logic flows in two directions. Usually when you look into these things, there is a two-directional nature to it, on and off, if you will, binary again. So the two directions, looking forward to predict, looking backwards to discover. Forward problem is predicting what a shape does. So one-to-one mapping, meaning one shape, one response. And it's the primary role of surrogate models. Inverse problems, as we just talked about, finding a shape for a specific goal, which is a one-to-many challenge because many different shapes can produce the same optical effect, which can confuse the AI model. So they put them together. I guess I didn't include that image, but they put them together And that gives them a result that they can use, or at least that they can test. It's a viable test candidate at that point. But again, it's built on all of the surrogate models. Let's see. I saw that I got somebody in the chat. How's it going? Targeted individuals from Korea. How's it going? Nice to have you with us tonight. Thank you for joining us. We're talking about measurements, telemetry. We watched a few segments on that. I'm not sure if you saw it or not, but if you didn't, you have to check those out. Those are pretty interesting. We talked about precision and cybernetics, and we just looked at, how did they predict cybernetics would, what would it do for technology? And they're talking about in those videos how they were trying to primarily translate the human body and human behavior, human movements, or games, chess in that case, when we were watching the video. They're trying to translate that into something a computer can understand. That's kind of the thing that people want to know the most, obviously. And so how, what kind of measurements are being taken and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about that. That's going to be over the next couple of days that I host for James. He'll be back on Monday again. So that is the primary terms that I wanted to go over. The surrogate model video that I did probably 2 months ago at this point. I did it when I was looking into meta-atoms and meta-optics. That was something I probably should include in there. Let's see. One moment. There's all kinds of different types of metasurfaces, but first we will go over meta-atoms. Meta-atoms, the fundamental microscopic prison bar of the programmable reality grid. So what is all of this material? What is the dust? What is it? Why are they putting it out there? It's because pretty much it's fully programmable. They can achieve qualities, they can achieve behavior that traditional matter, traditional atoms, traditional molecules, traditional surfaces couldn't do. And so they can actually create a lens that can do it exactly what they want. I'm going to show you a video in a minute of that. So it's the fundamental microscopic prison bar of the programmable reality grid. It's what's in all of the dust. A lot of it has to do with fully programmable reflecting of light, how much light reflects, how much doesn't. They can control all of that, how much exactly, down to very precise constraints. So it's an artificial sub-wavelength cell engineered to forcefully alter the physical behavior of electromagnetic energy before it reaches the human host. It's a granular approach, or a granular cage. The meta-atom is the death of natural physics because it operates at a sub-wavelength scale. It grants the system very fine granularity over the environment. By blanketing human habitats with billions of these synthetic cells, the walls themselves become a thinking, hostile entity capable of selectively irradiating, tracking, or digitally isolating the human subject at a microscopic level. So that brings me to the short little reel here that I have. Let me go ahead and play that for you. One moment. Kind of added some of the little screenshots that I had over this, but this was a segment that originally was talking about smart dust and wireless sensor networks back in the early 2000s.
Military strike against Afghanistan continues, and strategists search to come up with ways technology can aid the U.S. in defense of its borders and in military combat. Tiny wireless sensor networks are being developed with both commercial applications, such as manufacturing and security, and more recently, the potential for use in military tracking. Erica Hill has more.
tiny tech. From computers to cell phones, technology is getting smaller and cheaper. Sensor technology is doing the same, with a new communication system so...
Here, I'll show you a better, here's a better look at that page. The Smart Dust project at UC Berkeley finished in 2001. Now this was, what did they call it? Autonomous sensing and communication in a cubic millimeter. This was 2001. That's what's being talked about. Sorry, I went past the graphic right here.
So small, it may have surprising applications for the current war on terrorism.
If you are a soldier out in the field and you need to go over the next ridge, you'd rather send some kind
There
of...
it is in the air right there.
Instead of poking your head up.
UC Berkeley professor Chris Piester and his team are developing a complete sensor communication system that can be integrated into a cubic millimeter package. Using MEMS or micro...
There they are spraying them out right there.
The battery-powered sensor nodes are able to independently assess movement or environment, then relay that information between nodes or to a sensor board.
See, look, it's actually a layer. It's a layer. It's just very hard to see most times.
The ability to make sensor networks, sensor nodes rather, that are...
They're just spreading out.
And lower power. And so if you have the ability to sense and to communicate and to think, you put all that together with a power supply, then you have an autonomous wireless sensor node.
The sensor nodes, or motes, have already been successfully
And it says energy harvesting Y bands right there. That's the paper screenshot. I add that over there. That wasn't the original, but I add that because that's exactly what it was. Wireless on-demand drug delivery. Basically, you don't even need to. They can just beam it to you. They can send it to you. This is in the beta early testing phases, but the only issue is that you're going to have to use something like PLGA. I did a video on that. PLGA nanoparticles. They can do amazing things with it, but you can't ever get it out of you. So that's the trade-off.
And then when a vehicle would drive by, they would
metamolecules
detect the vehicle by this change in the compass heading, and then they transmit that information. So from that, he can figure out what the direction and velocity of the vehicle was.
At a cost of anywhere from tens to hundreds of
primary
dollars,
types of energy harvesting.
Commercially by Crossbow Technology. A specialized version for the military is also produced.
The best characteristics of military tracking are to be in a very small package that is invisible to the naked eye, and then to be extremely rugged so they can last for a long time unattended.
Piester believes it's only a matter of time before his motes, currently the size of an aspirin, are as tiny as a grain of sand.
The next generation is down at around 5 cubic millimeters, and that's this little tiny collection of
nanoplastics, microplastics. They like to use the word polymer so that you don't get any big ideas.
Ultimately, will be in a cubic millimeter volume.
Because it's our fault, remember?
I'm Erica Hill.
While the military hasn't broadly adopted the technology just yet, the project...
Once it's inside, it's a wearable medical device, and that's how they talk about it. So two other terms that I forgot to mention, but I will mention them because they're very important. When they talk about mesh is a type of network that it's like a fabric. You have to kind of imagine like a fish net. It's a very unique, but the two terms that we're going to look at first, SPIN. SPIN is actually an acronym. Most of the time they use acronyms, but SPIN, segmented polycentric integrated networks. So the true power of the SPIN lies in its ability to execute conspiracy without traditional conspiracy methods, such as secret meetings or communication. The mechanism of control is shared assumptions. It's everybody has the same shared assumptions. We would maybe call this the same spiritual state of being. In that respect, the same spiritual quality, the same shared assumptions. For instance, that's why you have people who are like Epstein child abusers. It's why they protect each other. It's because they have the same shared assumptions. So this is the foundation of the hive mind. Because the members of the network share the same programming, ideology, and worldview, often instilled by something like the Tavistock Institute or the New Age indoctrination cults. There's a lot of them. Foundations, think tanks, Ivy League universities. They take similar actions simultaneously without needing direct orders. This is why it is a spiritual conspiracy. That's why this is spiritual. It is the proof that it's spiritual, because they kind of participate without, they do it without knowing consciously. That's where the dissociation comes in. That's where the personality fractures come in. That's where multiple personality, that's what it really is. It's like a really bad cognitive dissonance. It's like when you're one person at work and then you come home and you have to be another type of person. The artificial grassroots. While the networks appear to be loose, evolutionary, and spontaneous, the archives reveal that they are man-made and artificial, funded and promoted from the start by outside sources such as the CIA, Freemasonry, like I said, tax-free foundations to steer society toward the New World Order. Let's go ahead and go to the more advanced version of that. It's called SPLICE. Segmented, polycentric, loosely integrated, coordinated entities. The definition: SPLICE, segmented, polycentric, loosely integrated, coordinated entities, serves as a precise functional upgrade to the archival term spin, which we just talked about. A spin is segmented, polycentric, integrated networks. And they really play with the words a lot, because one company or group may call it interconnected networks. One may call it integrated networks. So these acronyms, which is why I started the dictionary, the directory project, which there's a link to that in the description already, the Directory of Human Husbandry. I did that because there's so many of these acronyms, and they have so many different, similar, parallel, pretty much the same thing meaning, like smart dust. There's 100 million different types of smart, surveillance, monitoring, reporting technologies. The one that I remember. So SPLICE, this terminology more accurately reflects the biological and interdimensional nature of the control grid. It is not just a network of people, it's actually a splicing of human, machine, and entity into a single loosely bound organism. The reason we say it's just an entity is because it's not really human. Let's see. Let's see if I can see the chat, because for some reason it didn't pop in on my end. Let me make it a little bit bigger. Said, I see a tap in your browser, Smart Dust. Yes. So this is from UC Berkeley right here. It's just like a page talking about the Smart Dust project, which was finished in 2001 at UC Berkeley. And so this was autonomous sensing and communication in a cubic millimeter. So that was finished as early as 2001. Let's see. Can be viewed this as a prophecy about transhumanism, where human bodies are mixed with metallic elements like smart dust. Yeah, absolutely. I think that would be a very literal way, a very literal and valid way to look at it, because they literally are. It's more than just metal, because it is. That's another reason why this word entity. It's because it's not human. It's a chimera. It's a what do they call it? Miry iron and clay. I think that's how the phrasing is used in the Bible. So the SPLICE is the operating mode, the omega phase, the end phase. It describes a reality where the boundary between the individual and the state, the biological and the digital, and the human and the demonic has been dissolved. So we're no longer citizens in a nation. We are now segmented biological assets, polycentrically managed by AI, loosely interconnected via the 6G mesh. This is mesh. And possessed by entities that view us as livestock, living within a metaverse. Meta means dead. So, yeah, Hari Krishna, you're right. They are absolutely, they were early to this. They were early to this. A lot of those groups in California, specifically, they have bohemian roots, Bohemian Grove. But California was actually New Helvetia, founded as New Helvetia, as a Switzerland colony. And they were there just in time to set up shop selling shovels for the gold rush and for the railroad. So they were there just in time to make a lot of money. Let's see, there's a couple more that I probably want to show you guys. Yes, this is perfect. So I've read this a couple of times, but I will read it once again. Human reason being replaced by effective procedures. An effective procedure is an operation that enables the definition of a problem domain within formal mathematics, leaving it open for later computation using a machine. This is called an algorithm. This formalization of thought creates the conditions under which aspects of human life are delegated as machine processes or daemons. Making machines that think like us, we're making ourselves think like them at the same time. But what is the computational layer between the two? Probably all of the devices doing the measurements. And so I think that is kind of the point that I want everybody to understand at the end of tonight's part, is that I want everybody to remember that when you measure something, when you're able to measure something, you can game it to your own advantage. And that's the idea of the ring in the bull's nose on Wall Street. But, the nose ring theory, people talk about that a lot now. It's the same idea. So if you can hook something, well, you can put the lead back in it and you can move it around. That's what the ring in the nose of the bull means. And that's what it means. You can measure something, you can game it. This is what I mean by measurement. It's an algorithm, an effective procedure. These get really big, these get really advanced, and we're going to talk about some of them within basic reason, whatever I was able to find looking it up. What kind of measurements are done in I said what kind of measurements are done in healthcare, Internet of Things, Internet of Healthcare things, measurements. What kind of statistics are being pulled using telemetry? What kind of telemetry is available in these devices? That's what we're going to cover over the next couple episodes. We're probably going to touch on energy harvesting too. And again, it's not just metals, it's actually plastics and polymers too. They like to use the word polymers because if they use the word plastics, you might put two and two together and you might say, wait, small plastics that are dust. So nanodust, nanoplastics, microplastics. Wait, I thought they said that we all got microplastics inside of us. No, that's our fault. That's not their fault. That's our fault because we drink water out of plastic bottles. Let's see. I don't know, for some reason that's hard. I have to read it from my actual screen here. So let's see. Let me see if I can go ahead and just pop back up one moment. Yeah, here we go. Theoretically, if we were able to consider CERN as a dimensional intermediary broadcasting system, then the smart dust in our bodies could potentially act as receivers for whatever entity CERN was building or was built for. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this. Yeah, so basically, I think the way to look at it is that all of us are kind of constituting the entity. So in the same way that that reminds me, I've got a perfect definition to read. Basically, the way that cells in the body comprise the human, we are, cells in the computer, pretty much. So let me go ahead and bring up this term Gestalt. Gestalt is a term that I think applies. Let me take a drink first. Yeah, okay. So Gestalt, I learned this term in psychology. It's a term in psychology, but Gestalt, in the occult architecture of the matrix, the Gestalt refers to the whole making principle, where a structure or system becomes greater than the sum of its individual parts. So rather than a mere psychological concept of perception, it's the primary necromantic mechanism used to forge an egregor. It's probably a term I should start with, egregor. But the entity that we're talking about in the context of CERN is more akin to this. It's akin to an egregor that we all constitute, perhaps based on our beliefs, our shared assumptions. So the collective group mind, or autonomous psychic entity generated by the synchronized thoughts of a population. This esoteric concept of the Gestalt serves as the exact spiritual foundation for the body corporate. By legally, socially, and spiritually binding human beings in a corporate fiction or globalist collective, the cryptocracy absorbs individual divine sparks into a massive artificial group soul, which New Age architects blasphemously define as the Gestalt quality of the whole of being. They think that's the big picture, but it's not the whole picture. They kind of leave out any of the spiritual stuff, like modern day psychiatry. Once a human collective is successfully fused into a Gestalt, like I said, you have human resources department. A company or a corporation has different departments, and the departments are akin to organs in the body. So once the human collective is fused into a Gestalt, basically putting humans together where they form something greater than they are individually, like birds flying in a pack. The resulting synergistic energy produces the zeitgeist, which is a spirit of the times that mimics the unified power of a rampaging crowd. So within the esoteric hierarchy, these massive collective energy fields are actively manipulated by and classified as principalities and powers. Principalities are ruling spiritual entities that govern specific geographical, political, or social domains, feeding directly off of the quote-unquote school spirit. I put that there because that's something we might understand more in the modern context. Because you're told that your school spirit is what characterizes the school or maybe a college, university that you go to. It's the personality that everybody there shares. And so it's a spirit. That is a big thing that people have come to view differently in recent times. People view a spirit more like an invisible ghost or like a cloud. In reality, a spirit is an animating force. It's a wind, a breath. But it's also in the way that we use vibe, similar to that. It is some type of energy that everybody can feel. And it's like it must exist independently of you because other people can feel it and other people can be animated by it. That's why it has to be something in and of its own right. Could be defined by a lack thereof too in the case of hauntology. So, therefore, to form a Gestalt or a body corporate is to perform a macro level ritual that summons a principality to possess, manipulate, and definitively govern a unified human hive mind, groupthink. So yeah, in that sense, I think that's really what this is about. All of this being inside of us. You have to understand they want zero latency, meaning the amount of time that it takes to get the messages from point A to point B. They want that to just be zero, which means that they do that by making us all part of the network. Because if we're all in the same body, we don't have to send the data anywhere. It's already just in the body. That's the idea of a fungal mycelial network. The idea of, we played the Age of Deceit documentaries a couple weeks ago, and the last two films talk about how some have said that blockchain technology has the same properties as mycelial networks, being that the whole ledger is stored in all, I guess you could say, all cells. All cells have the big picture in it. Contains the grain, or the seed is a better word to use. It has the seed to create itself again. And so they talk about how they believe that Bitcoin and blockchain, rather, the term they use, blockchain, has properties of life that way. But they compare it to fungal networks, which is the same idea, is that there is something that happens when you put a bunch of birds together and they fly, and it's like one of them turns and they all turn at precisely the same time. So there's something there, and they called this, in early times, they called it animal magnetism. Animal magnetism. And they pretty much viewed it as that. And now that I think about it, as if we go back to the concept of dielectromagnetism, Ken Wheeler said that there was a relationship between, magnetism and dielectricity, and he brought that into, one was radiative, meaning it kind of from the center outwards, and then you have the counter spatial force that sucks inwards. It's called dielectrical avoidance, is what we covered in the last couple episodes. He talks about that in the context of magnetism, and so I wonder, maybe they had more of it figured out when they called it animal magnetism. So yeah, and that's what, if you guys remember the movie Angels and Demons, they talk about the antimatter. Remember, it gets hidden underneath the Vatican, and they go to the Vatican. Well, the antimatter is quite literally a plasmoid. That's what the antimatter was. It was a plasmoid. So hiding it under the Vatican. Huh. Maybe that's where it's hidden. It's probably where it is hidden. There's a lot that goes into it, but yeah. I think, guys, that's where we're going to wrap it up tonight. We're going to get into more tomorrow. Let's see. Loved the TikTok post of them opening CERN. The Almighty Jesus Christ comes through, and the scientists are running in fear, pretty much. Yeah, they would be really scared if that happened, because that means something's gone wrong. I mean, I don't know if you guys remember, it was a while ago, but we watched the Stranger Things documentary where it talks about Stranger Things and the black goo. That's the antimatter, or not the antimatter, but that's the dust. That's the mesh network in us all. It's that mesh segmented network. It forms the beast. It's a big computer on a global scale. That's the way that they want to put it together. And the way that they're going to do it is by getting this into everything. Thereby, everything becomes part of the network, and thereby, you don't have to send the data anywhere. And you can make really good predictions because you have data on everything. And we're going to talk about more of that in detail in the next, episodes. But I'm going to wrap it up here just because I set the stage and I got everybody kind of ready to go on those topics. So it'll be fresh in your mind tomorrow. We're going to talk more about what these measurements are, what do they look like, what are they measuring, and some other odds and ends. Probably we are going to cover some of the terms that ways that they do energy harvesting. And we can even read some portions of their white papers, because they talk about it. They talk about it in their white papers. It's pretty blatant. It's just pretty crazy when you think about it. In their white papers, they're like, yeah, we're going to have location-aware wireless body area networks. We're going to power it with energy harvesting. I'm like, wait, what? They just say that in the paper? Like, wow. And then you look it up. And when you look it up, it's like, oh, no, it's okay. It's just passive. Just taking the passive energy. You don't need it. You don't need the passive energy. We're just going to take it. And they're not going to tell you about it. They're not going to inform you about it unless you know about it. You find out about it. If you call them out, then you're crazy. But you'd have to know the right words because they use this coded language. And that's the best I gather, is that the way that they can get around it that way is that if somebody uses the wrong term, they can call them a conspiracy theorist. But if you know how to say it, if you call it a wearable medical device, then they might look at you differently. But yeah, so we're going to leave off tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed the show tonight. I hope you guys learned something new, or at least found it interesting. But yeah, we're gonna get into more on measurements, telemetry, stuff like that. And James will be back on Monday. He might be back Tuesday, just in case it might not be Monday. Worst case scenario, if he's a day late back, I will be here probably on Monday, and he'll be back on Tuesday. So if you haven't hit the like button, please hit the like button. Please follow the channel if you haven't yet. And I will see you guys in the next show. Take care, everybody. Have a good night. Be safe. I will see you tomorrow.